Have you ever wondered how the world came to look the way that it does now? Or how animals came to behave and look the way they do? Every culture has come up with its own stories to explain the hows and whys of life around us. And in fact, a big part of the function of folklore is to help us understand the world and make sense out of it so that we can find our place within it usefully and survive. Folklore is very utilitarian in that sense. It teaches us something fundamental about the world and the way the world works so that we can know the world and ourselves better. Pourquoi tales are often about the natural world and explain how and why. Why is one of our first questions about the world around us. When we're young, we ask, why, and we keep on asking it when we get older. As humans, we have a desire to reason and to rationalize the world around us. Why is the beginning of the search for knowledge. In this lecture, we'll hear a few pourquoi stories from different cultures, and we'll talk a bit about what the stories tell us about the world and about ourselves. And we'll also think about what it means to say whether a story is true and the different things that true can mean. Some of the most famous pourquoi stories are those written by Rudyard Kipling in his collection of Just So stories. Let's begin with one of the folk stories that he recorded from India. It's a creation story, a story that tells about how, in the beginning, the camel had no hump. In the beginning, when the world was so new and all, and the animals were just beginning to work for humankind, there was a camel who lived out in the middle of a howling desert. He lived there because he did not want to work. He ate sticks and thorns and milkweed and prickles, and when anybody spoke to him, he just said, "Humph!" Just humph, and no more. On Monday morning, the horse came to him with a saddle on his back and said, "Camel, come out and trot like the rest of us." What did the camel say? Humph! Later that day, a dog came to him with a stick in his mouth. "Camel, come out and fetch and carry like the rest of us." Humph! In the afternoon, the ox came to him with a yoke on his neck and said, "Camel, come plow like the rest of us." Humph! And all three animals, the horse, the dog, and the ox, went and told the man. And the man said, "I'm very sorry for you, the world being so new and all, but that hump thing in the desert can't work. Or he would have been here by now, and there is so much work to be done. You must do work double time to make up for him." Now this made the three very angry. So they began to talk amongst themselves. The camel walked by, chewing milkweed, and just laughed at them about what could be done. When along came, rolling by in a cloud of dust, the djinn in charge of all deserts. "Djinn in charge of all deserts," said the horse. "Is it right for anyone to be so idle with the world so new and all?" "Certainly not," said the djinn. "Well, there's a thing out in the middle of the desert with a long neck and long legs, and he hasn't done a stroke of work yet. He won't trot." "Woo-hoo!" whistled the djinn. "That's my camel for all the gold in Arabia. What does he say about it?" "He says, 'Humph!'" said the dog, "and he won't fetch and carry." "Does he say anything else?" "Only 'Humph!' said the ox, "and he won't plow." So the djinn went to the camel in the desert. "My long-necked friend, what is this I hear of you doing no work, with the world so new and all?" "Humph!" said the camel. "Very well," said the djinn, "as you say." And when the camel said once again, "Humph!" he saw his back that he was so proud of, puffing up into a great big lolloping humph. "That is your own humph that you have brought upon your very own self by not working. It's already Thursday, and you've done no work since Monday when the work began. Now you are going to work." "How can I," said the camel, "with this hump on my back?" "That's made a purpose," said the djinn. all because you missed those 3 days of work. You will be able to work now for 3 days without eating, because you can live on your hump. Now, come out of the desert and help the other 3 and behave." So the camel humped away to help the other 3. And from that day to this, the camel always wears a hump. We call it a hump now, not to hurt his feelings. But he has never yet caught up with the other 3 days that he missed at the beginning of the world, and he never yet learned how to behave. Sometimes we get just what we ask for. The jinn in this story is a trickster figure. He takes it upon himself to teach the camel a lesson. Now, there are lots of different kinds of jinn in Arabic folklore and in mythology. Now, some of them are friendly, and some of them are just plain mean. Now, these were the kind that got put into bottles and into lamps. You don't want to mess with those guys. The Quran says that the jinn were created by God from the fire of a scorching wind, which is why they ride on a cloud of hot, swirling air. In contemporary anglicized folklore, we think of genies as friendly, helpful spirits. We get this from the Romans, who changed the Arabic word jinn to genie, which is connected with the word genius. The Romans believed genies were the spirits who guarded over very smart and talented people. But the Roman word genie didn't account for the mean, powerful genies, or even the trickster spirits that were the real jinn of Arabic folklore. Many Pourquoi stories are about animals, as in this African-American story. Long, long ago, the rabbit did not have long ears. Show me your long ears. Long ears and a short tail. The rabbit had short ears. Show me your short ears. And a long tail. Show me your long tail. Oh, and the rabbit, he would pet that tail, and he loved that tail. He was so proud of that tail. He would show that tail to everyone, including the fox. And the fox got very tired of the rabbit talking and bragging about his long tail. And at first, the fox got a little annoyed, and then he got irritated, and then he got angry. And you don't want a fox angry with you. So the fox decided to get even with that rabbit. And one day, the fox went walking along right beside the rabbit with a fine catch of fish dangling from a stick. And he just went walking past that rabbit, and the rabbit, petting his tail, so proud, he looked over at those fish, and he asked the fox where he got those delicious-looking fish from. And the fox, he just said that he had caught the fish over by the lake, and that he could catch just as fine a catch of fish himself if he only took that long, beautiful tail that he was always swishing in everybody's face. If he took that tail and just dangled it down into the water. Well, the rabbit wanted those fish. So he decided he would take a blanket. Everybody take your blanket. And he flung it around himself. And he went up, 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 down to the lake. Well, he saw there was a log stretched across it. And so he went over. And he crept over, hop, 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 over to that log. And it was getting to be sundown. And he took that long, beautiful tail. Everybody take your long tail. Took that long, beautiful tail, wrapped that blanket tightly around him, and he started to dip that tail into the water so that it could catch all those fish. And he dipped it once. Woo! It was cold. Ready, take your tail. He dipped it twice. Woo! It was cold, and the sun was starting to set, but he knew if he put his tail in that water, he would catch all those fish. So he did it a third time. Everybody? He dipped it down. Ooh. Ooh. And he let it stay there all night long. He waited, and all night long, that tail was so cold, but he pulled that blanket tighter around him. Everybody pull your blanket tighter. He pulled that blanket tighter around him, and he thought about all the fish that he was going to catch with his fine, beautiful tail. Well, morning came. The sun came up. Oh, he was excited. He knew he'd waited that long, cold night to catch all those fish, and he started to pull that tail up, and it wouldn't come out. He started to try again, and that tail wouldn't come out, and he turned around, and his tail was stuck fast in ice. The water had iced overnight, and there was his tail stuck down to just a little bitty nubbin down there in the ice. Well, he started calling out for help, and an owl began to pass by and heard his cries for help, and the owl, whoo-hoo, it came over and perched in a branch, and it saw that silly rabbit with its tail stuck fast in the ice, and you know what the owl said? And the owl came over and tried to help that poor rabbit. He grabbed hold of one of the rabbit's ears. But he grabbed hold of your ear. And he started to tug, to pull him out of the water. And he tugged, and he tugged, and he tugged, and he tugged. And every time he tugged, that ear got longer and longer and longer, but still the tail stuck fast in the ice. So he grabbed the other ear. Everybody grabbed the other ear. And he tugged, and he tugged, and he pulled, and he pulled, and he pulled, and he pulled. And that ear got longer and longer and longer, but the tail stuck fast into the ice. And then, he came over with his sharp beak. And he went right over to that nubbin of the tail right where it was stuck fast to the ice, and he snipped the part of the tail that was stuck underneath the ice clean off. The rabbit was free, boing, 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 boing. But he turned around, and that beautiful tail, it was gone. Oh! And he went hopping back home, and he hid there for many days. But his ears never grew shorter, and his tail never grew longer, and that is why the rabbit has long ears and a short tail. We could feel sorrier for the poor little rabbit, who, to this day, has only a piece of a tail, if only he hadn't thought he was so much better than the other animals in the first place. Like the camel, who had to learn his lesson, the rabbit gets taught a lesson through his own tail, and his tail and the camel's hump remind us of the lessons they learned. In this case, don't brag and think you're better than others. There are many Pourquoi stories about animals looking the way they do now as a consequence of their foolhardy choices. And there are other Pourquoi stories that tell of an animal's kindness, giving it characteristics. For example, one Norse legend says that the robin got its red breast when the one fire in the whole world nearly burnt out. And the robin fanned a tiny spark into a blazing fire to give fire back to the world, and it burned its red breast in the process. So it's not only the animal's faults that have consequences. Sometimes it's the animal's virtues that result in permanent changes. But not all Pourquoi stories are about animals. Some Pourquoi tales also explain how the world around us came to be, such as in this story, which is also from the Norse countries. There once were two men who were brothers. One was rich and the other was poor. And on Christmas Day, the poor man had nothing to eat. So he went to his brother and asked for food. "If you will go to the house of the goblins," said the brother, "you may have some meat." So the poor man promised to go. "Take this then," and the rich man, and he flung out a piece of meat. Well, the poor man remembered his promise, and he started off to the goblin's house, but he didn't know the way. He walked and he walked until nighttime, and at last a bright light shone ahead. "This must be the place," he thought, and so he turned at the gate. An old, old man was there, and he was cutting wood for the Christmas fire. "Good evening," said the poor man. "The same to you," said the old man. "Do the goblins live here, old man?" "Indeed they do," answered the woodcutter. "But if you would go in with the meat, They will all want it. Tell them to give you the little mill behind the door. Then throw the meat among them. They will fight for it, and you can run away with the mill. It is worth more than the meat, and I will show you how to use it." And so the poor man knocked at the door, and a big goblin opened it. All the goblins smelled the meat, but the man held it fast. "Give me the little mill behind the door," said he, "and I will give you the meat for it." "Yes, yes," they all cried, and the biggest goblin brought the mill. "Now, then, here is the meat," said the man, and he flung it among them, and such a fight there never was. The man ran out with the mill, and the woodcutter taught him how to use it, and then he took it home. "Where in the world have you been?" asked his wife. "Oh, I've been where I have been," said the man with the mill. "What have you for dinner?" she asked. "Oh, you shall see what you shall see," answered the man, and he put the mill up on the table. "Now," he said to the mill, "grind lights for us." Whir, 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 went the mill, and out came lamps, all lighted. "Hocus pocus, stop," said the man, for that was the way to stop the mill. "Now grind forks and knives, then grind some food for 2, he said, and the mill obeyed. And soon they were eating a fine dinner. Each day the mill served the man. From morning until night it ground something good or something pretty. And one day the wife said, "Let us give a big dinner, and let us invite your rich brother." "We will give the dinner today," said the man, and all the neighbors came. And so did the rich brother. The mill ground out a wonderful dinner. And when the rich brother saw such fine food, he was so cross that he could hardly eat. "Where in the world did you get these things?" said he. "Oh," said the owner of the mill, "they came from behind the door." But he was so proud of the mill, and by he brought it out. He called and caused it to grind for his brother. Of course, the rich man wanted it. He begged for it. He scolded for it. And at last, the poor brother said, "I will sell the mill, but you must pay me $300 for it." So the rich brother paid the money and went off with the mill. And when the rich man got home, he called to his wife. "Wife, wife," he said, "go to the hayfield for me today. I will stay home and get the dinner." And his wife was glad. She was tired of cooking dinners. "Well then," said she, "get some soup and fish ready for us." "Soup and fish it shall be," answered the rich man, and when he was alone, he got the mill. "Grind soup and fish," he said, "and grind them fast." Whir, 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 went the mill, and out poured soup and fish. Well, first, the dishes were filled, and then the pans, and then the tubs. "Stop, mill!" cried the rich man, but those were not the words to cause the mill to stop. So it ground on, and poured more and more soup, and more fish. Soon the kitchen was full, and then the pantry, and then the hall, and then the parlor. Soup poured out of the doors, and fish flopped out of the windows. Out rushed the rich man down the hill, and down poured the soup at his heels. Soon the man saw his wife coming. "Wife, wife," he cried, "call them in and drink for your lives, for the town will be drowned in soup. I'm off for my brother to stop the mill." And the wife and the haymakers sat down by the soup stream, and they drank, but down poured the soup. And down flopped the fish, and then the rich man ran to his brother. "Quick, quick," he called, "run and stop your mill. If you don't save us, the town will be destroyed in soup." The poor brother was busy. He was smoking his pipe. "Come in, brother," he said, "take a chair. What is this about soup? The mill will not stop, you say. Well, go home and stop it yourself. It is your mill now." "Oh," said the rich man, "I'll pay you money to take it away. Only hurry." "How much money?" said the poor man. "Oh, $1,000 if you wish. Just be quick." And up jumped the poor man. He ran to the brother's house, and he had to wade through the soup to the mill. "Hocus pocus, stop," he whispered. And at the word, the mill obeyed. Now the poor man had the mill and the money too, and the rich man was well punished for the way he had treated his poor brother. Well, the days and the years went by. The mill ground and ground for the poor man, and at last he could think of nothing more for it to grind. So it was put on a shelf behind the door. But people had heard of it all over the world. And one day, a merchant came to the town to see it. "Can the mill grind salt?" he asked. "Can it indeed?" said the owner. "Let me show you." And he took the mill down from the shelf. And then, said he, "Grind salt." And out poured salt. And then, "Hocus pocus, stop," he whispered. "Will you sell me the mill?" asked the merchant. And at first the man said no. But he could think of nothing more for the mill to grind, so he said, "Yes, for $1,000, not a penny less. That you shall have," said the merchant, and he paid the money and took the mill. He was pleased, too. He whistled a tune as he went to his ship, and the next morning the merchant set sail. And when he was far from land, he took the mill on deck. "Grind salt," said he, "and grind it fast." Whir, whir, whir went the mill, and out poured salt. First the bags were filled, then the boxes, and then the baskets. There was more than they could measure. "Stop!" cried the merchant. But it did not stop. No one had learned hocus pocus stop. So on ground the mill, and whir, 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 the salt grew deeper. Lower and lower sank the ship at last. The merchant was frightened. He thought the ship would soon go to the bottom, so he caught up the mill and he threw it into the sea. Down, down it sank to the bottom, grinding and grinding. Some say it is grinding still. And if you do not believe it, go and taste the water in the sea. In folklore, Pourquoi stories aren't true, but they reveal something true about the world around us and how we should behave. It's important to contribute to the work of the world, or you might wind up with a hump on your back. Do not think you're more entitled than others, or your tail might get snipped off. Beware of being mean to others, or you might wind up drowning in a river of fish soup. Human beings have been coming up with answers to these how and why questions for as long as we can remember. Nowadays, we tend to rely on modern science for the answers to these questions. Camels look the way they do because animals evolved and adapted over millions of years into the appearances and behaviors that they have today. The sea is salty because as rain falls, it breaks down rocks, creating charged particles called ions, including sodium and chloride ions, which taste salty. And these ions in the water flow into streams and rivers and into the oceans and seas. And when the seawater evaporates, the salty ions are left behind and accumulate. Now these are science stories. Folklore and folk stories have different answers to these why questions. Stories from people all over the world that have adapted them and helped them understand how and why things came to be the way that they are. The stories we adopt that answer how and why around us, they tend to reinforce the worldview and the values that we have. In contemporary societies, many people believe the scientific stories. They are proven based on scientific fact or tested theories. That we believe these stories reflects the value that we place on scientific principles and reasoning. But even in modern society, these simple folk stories that are fictions are very useful. Pourquoi stories are generally understood not to be true, but they reveal the nature behind the world that surrounds us. It's not that science is at odds with folklore. They just reveal different things. We go to science when we want to understand how and why physical processes function, and those are fascinating stories. We can go to folklore when we want to understand how we function as a culture, and why certain characteristics such as perseverance and trustworthiness, humility, bravery, cunning, and all the rest, why those are helpful in life. And those are fascinating stories too. There's another genre of folk tales that use animals to teach us lessons about humanity and the world around us, and these are fables. In fact, many Pourquoi stories serve as fables, fictional stories that teach a moral lesson. Next, we'll hear more such fables from Aesop and more.